The lobby chair scraped against marble as the security guard pulled it away. "You can wait outside," he said, loud enough for the entire reception area to hear. "This furniture is for guests." David didn't move at first. He sat on the floor now, his worn jeans and rain-soaked jacket marking him as different from every polished surface in the Kensington Grand Hotel. Around him, London's elite moved through the space like water around a stone, aware of him but careful not to acknowledge. "Sir?" The guard's hand hovered near David's shoulder. "I won't ask again." David looked up. The guard was young, maybe 25, doing a job he probably needed. Behind him stood the front desk manager, a woman in her 40s with perfect posture and a face that had forgotten how to soften. "I'm waiting for someone," David said quietly. "Not here, you're not." The manager stepped forward, her heels clicking with authority. "This is a 5-star establishment. We have standards." A couple walking past slowed. The woman whispered something to her husband. He smirked. David felt the heat rising in his chest, the familiar pressure of being seen as less than. But he kept his voice level. "I understand. I just need 10 minutes. You need to leave." The manager's tone shifted, harder now. "Before I call the police." The lobby went quieter. Conversations paused, phones came out. David stood slowly, his knees protesting. He'd been traveling for 16 hours. New York to London, delayed twice. Luggage lost somewhere over the Atlantic. He'd come straight from Heathrow to meet Sarah, the woman he'd been seeing long distance for 8 months. She was staying here. Room 412. She'd texted him the details, but his phone had died somewhere over Greenland, and he looked like exactly what he was. Exhausted, underdressed, and out of place. "I can call up to her room," David offered. "Sarah Chen, she's expecting me." The manager's expression didn't change. "Miss Chen is a valued guest. I'm not disturbing her because someone from the street knows her name." "I'm not from the street." "Then where's your room key, your reservation, your luggage?" David had nothing. Just a dead phone and a wallet with cards that would prove everything if she just let him explain. But she wouldn't. "Escort him out," the manager said. "Front entrance. Make sure he's seen." The walk to the door felt infinite. The security guard gripped his elbow, not rough, but firm enough to guide. David moved through the lobby like a criminal, past the mahogany check-in desk, past the glass display of luxury watches, past a woman in furs who pulled her child closer as he passed. The revolving door spun him out onto the wet London street. Rain misted down, turning the evening lights into smears of gold and white. Behind him, through the glass, he saw the manager speak into her radio, saw her nod, saw her return to her post like she'd just taken out the trash. David pulled his jacket tighter and walked to the corner, found a coffee shop, borrowed a charger from the barista. When his phone finally powered on, there were 3 texts from Sarah. Asterisk running late. Meeting went long. Asterisk should be back by 8. Wait in the lobby. Can't wait to see you. He stared at the screen. Then he looked back toward the hotel, its gold letters glowing against the London sky. He could walk back in, show his ID, demand they call Sarah, make them apologize. Or he could wait. He ordered coffee and sat by the window. What the manager didn't know, what no one in that lobby knew, was that David Monroe owned the Kensington Grand Hotel. Not through his name, not visibly, but through a trust established by his late father, a structure so intentionally opaque that even senior staff had no idea who actually held the deed. The hotel was one of 7 properties across 3 countries, managed through holding companies and investment groups that kept David's identity buried under layers of corporate architecture. He'd inherited the portfolio at 23 after his father died. Spent the next 12 years learning the business from the ground up, not in boardrooms, but in kitchens, laundry rooms, maintenance closets. He'd worked as a line cook in Chicago, a night auditor in Boston, a porter in Seattle. He wanted to understand the industry from the inside, where the real work happened, where people like that security guard spent 60 hours a week keeping places like the Kensington Grand running. He'd never announced himself, never pulled rank, never needed the ego boost. The hotel practically ran itself. He had a managing director, a GM, department heads who reported quarterly. He reviewed financials remotely, approved major expenditures, stayed invisible. It worked better that way. But now, sitting in a coffee shop across from a building he owned, David felt the sharp edge of irony cutting into him. He could end this with a single phone call, walk back in as the owner, watch that manager's face collapse, watch her scramble, watch her beg. But then Sarah would know. And if Sarah knew, everything would change. They'd met at a food truck in Manhattan. She'd been in the city for work. Consultant, corporate restructuring, and the kind of job that paid well enough for 5-star hotels, but kept her traveling constantly. He'd been there visiting a friend, wearing jeans and a Mets hoodie, looking like anyone. They'd talked for 2 hours, exchanged numbers, started texting daily. She thought he worked in hospitality, which was true. She thought he managed a small property in Portland, which was technically true depending on how you defined manage. He hadn't lied. He'd just never corrected her assumptions. And now, 8 months in, the idea of telling her felt impossible. Because how do you explain that you've been hiding something that fundamental? How do you prove it wasn't about testing her or playing games? How do you make her believe you just wanted to be seen as *U**, not your bank account? So David sat in the coffee shop and waited. At 8:17, Sarah texted, * just got back. Where are you? David looked at his phone, then at the hotel, then back at his phone. * downstairs. Grabbed coffee. Come meet me? 3 minutes later, she walked out of the Kensington Grand in a charcoal suit, her hair tied back, her face lighting up when she saw him through the window. She came inside, and he stood, and she hugged him so hard his ribs ached. You look exhausted, she said, pulling back to study his face. Rough flight? Why didn't you wait in the lobby? It's freezing out. David hesitated. Didn't feel right. She frowned but didn't push. Come on, let's get you upstairs. You need a shower and about 12 hours of sleep. They walked back toward the hotel together. Sarah chatted about her meeting, about the client, about how London always felt like coming home even though she'd only been here twice. David barely heard her, because as they approached the entrance, he saw the manager through the glass, saw her stiffen, saw her eyes track him like a threat. Sarah pushed through the revolving door first. The manager intercepted them immediately. Miss Chen, she said, her smile bright and professional. Welcome back. Did you have a productive evening? Very, thank you. Sarah gestured to David. This is David. He'll be staying with me. The manager's smile fractured. I'm sorry. We have a strict policy about unregistered guests. He's not a guest. He's with me. I understand, but for security purposes, he's my boyfriend. Sarah's voice cooled. Is that a problem? The manager's eyes flicked to David. He saw the recognition, saw the calculation, saw her deciding whether to double down or retreat. She doubled down. Miss Chen, I'm sure you understand we have standards to maintain. This individual was removed from the premises earlier for loitering. I can't in good conscience allow him back inside. Sarah turned to David. What? It's fine, David said quietly. It's not fine. Sarah looked back at the manager. You threw him out? He was occupying lobby furniture without a reservation. He refused to leave. I was waiting for her, David said, his voice tight. I told you that. You looked like... The manager stopped herself, but the damage was done. Like what? Sarah's voice cut like glass. The lobby was watching now. The same guests who'd ignored David earlier were suddenly fascinated. The manager straightened. Miss Chen, if you'd like to file a complaint with management, I'm happy to provide the necessary forms. But I stand by my decision. Sarah stared at her, then at David, then back at the manager. Get your supervisor. I am the supervisor on duty. Then get the general manager. He's not available at this hour? Sarah pulled out her phone. Then I'll call corporate? What's the ownership group? The manager's jaw tightened. That information isn't public. Everything's public if you look hard enough. David put a hand on Sarah's arm. Let it go. She shook him off. No, this is discrimination. This is... Oh, Sarah? His voice cracked just slightly, just enough. Please, let's just go. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something that made her stop. Fine, she said quietly. We're leaving. Miss Chen, you're welcome to stay. It's only... I'm checking out. Sarah was already walking toward the elevators. Send the bill to my company. I'm sure they'll love hearing why. David followed her, feeling the weight of every eye in that lobby. The same chair he'd been pulled from sat empty now. In the elevator, Sarah was silent. Her hands shook as she pressed the button for the 4th floor. I'm sorry, David said. Don't. Her voice was hard. Don't apologize for them. They packed her things in silence. Sarah moved through the room like a storm, shoving clothes into her suitcase, yanking chargers from walls. David sat on the edge of the bed and watched, feeling something fundamental shifting between them. When they left, the manager was nowhere to be seen. A night clerk processed Sarah's checkout with nervous efficiency, his eyes darting between her and David, like he was watching a bomb tick down. Outside, the rain had picked up. Sarah flagged a cab. Where are we going? David asked. I don't know. Somewhere that doesn't treat people like garbage. They ended up at a Holiday Inn near Paddington. Clean, simple, anonymous. In the room, Sarah finally stopped moving. She sat on the bed and put her head in her hands. I don't understand, she said. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? That they kicked you out. You just sat there, in a coffee shop, waiting. What was I supposed to do? Fight back. Demand respect. Something. She looked up at him, and her eyes were wet. You just took it? David felt something crack open in his chest. I'm tired, Sarah. Of what? Of fighting to prove I belong. Of being looked at like I'm less. Of having to justify my existence to people who've already decided what I'm worth. His voice was shaking now. I just wanted to see you, that's all. And they made me feel like I was nothing. Sarah crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. They held each other in that anonymous hotel room while London hummed outside the window. And David didn't tell her. Because how could he? How could he explain that he owned the place that had humiliated him, that he'd let it happen, that he'd chosen silence over power because power would have meant losing her? The next 3 days were strange. They explored London together, walked along the Thames, visited the Tate Modern, ate street food in Camden Market. Sarah kept trying to bring up the hotel, but David deflected, changed the subject, made her laugh instead. But the distance was growing. He could feel it in the way she looked at him. Like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't have all the pieces to. On their last night, over Indian food in Brick Lane, she finally said it. "I need to know who you are." David set down his fork. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're kind, you're thoughtful, you're smart, but you're also hidden. Like there's this whole part of you I'm not allowed to see." She leaned forward. "What are you so afraid of?" "I'm not afraid." "Then why won't you fight for yourself? Why do you let people walk over you?" "I don't." "You do, at the hotel, in the coffee shop when that guy cut in front of you. Yesterday when the cab driver tried to overcharge us, you just absorb it." Her voice softened. "And I don't know if that's strength or if you've just given up." David looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the full weight of the lie between them. "I should go," he said. "What?" "Back to Portland. You got work. I'm just..." "Don't." Sarah reached across the table, grabbed his hand. "Don't run, not from this." But he was already running. He left the next morning, told her it was a work emergency, kissed her at Heathrow, and promised they'd talk soon. The flight back to New York felt like purgatory. David landed, took a cab to his apartment in Brooklyn, and sat in the dark for 6 hours. His phone rang 4 times. Sarah, he didn't answer. She texted, *, what happened? Then *, did I say something wrong? Then *, please talk to me. Then nothing. 3 days passed. David went to his office, a small, unmarked space in a building downtown where he handled the actual business of owning things. He had a staff of 3, an accountant, a lawyer, an assistant who mostly fielded emails he didn't want to deal with. "You look like hell," his assistant said when he walked in. "Rough week?" "The Kensington called. Some issue with a guest complaint. Want me to handle it?" David froze. "What kind of complaint?" "Didn't say. Just asked for someone from ownership to call back." David took the message slip, stared at it. Then he made the call. The general manager answered on the second ring. "Mr. Monroe, thank you for getting back to me." "What's the issue?" "We had an incident last week. A guest, Ms. Sarah Chen, filed a formal complaint about discriminatory treatment toward her companion. Our front desk manager, Catherine Wells, made some questionable decisions." David's grip tightened on the phone. "Go on." "Miss Chen has significant corporate pull. Her company books over 200 room nights a year with us. She's threatening to pull all future business unless we address her concerns." A pause. "She's asked for an internal review, full documentation, interviews with staff, and..." "I've launched the review. I've reviewed security footage. I've spoken with Catherine." Another pause, heavier this time. "Mr. Monroe, the man Miss Chen was with, the one Catherine removed from the lobby, he matched your description." Silence. "I need to ask," the GM continued carefully. "Was that you?" David closed his eyes. "Yes." "Jesus Christ." "I was there to meet Miss Chen. I didn't announce myself. Catherine didn't know." "But you could have from..." "I know." "Why didn't you?" "Because it wasn't about me." The GM was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? David thought about Catherine, about her face when she'd decided he didn't belong, about the security guard who'd just been doing his job, about Sarah, who'd fought for him without knowing the whole truth. Send me the footage, David said, and Catherine's employment file. Are you terminating her? I'm reviewing. Mr. Monroe. Just send it. The footage arrived an hour later. David watched himself get pulled from the chair, watched Catherine's face, cold, certain, righteous, watched the crowd's reactions, watched Sarah storm out. He watched it 3 times, then he opened Catherine's file. 12 years with the company. Stellar reviews, multiple commendations, a single complaint from 4 years ago dismissed after investigation. She was good at her job. By every metric that mattered to the industry, she was exactly what a front desk manager should be. But she'd looked at him and seen trash. David drafted an email, deleted it, drafted another, deleted that too. Finally, he called the GM back. I want a full diversity and inclusion audit, David said. Every property, every department. I want to know if this is systemic or isolated. That's going to be expensive. I don't care. And Catherine? David was quiet, and then mandatory retraining, formal apology to Miss Chen. If it happens again, termination. That's lenient. It's fair, David said. People deserve a chance to be better. If you've ever been judged by people who didn't bother to see you, you know that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about refusing to let their blindness define your worth. The GM paused. I'll handle it. One more thing, David said. I want to send a formal apology to Miss Chen from ownership, anonymous. She'll want to know who owns the hotel. Tell her we value privacy, but we value her more. The letter reached Sarah 3 days later. David didn't know if she'd accept it. Didn't know if she'd ever speak to him again. But 2 weeks later, his phone rang. Sarah. He answered. Hi, she said. Hi. The hotel sent me a letter. I heard. They apologized, offered me a free week. Promised changes. A pause. Did you have anything to do with that? David's heart hammered. Why would I? Because you disappeared right after. Because you won't talk about what happened. Because I know you, David, and I know when you're hiding something. He could tell her, right now. End the deception, risk everything. Sarah, I don't care, she said. You what? I don't care about the hotel. I don't care about what you're hiding. I care that you're hiding. Her voice cracked. I care that you don't trust me enough to be honest. It's not about trust. Then what is it about, oh? David looked out his window at the Brooklyn skyline. Thought about his father, about growing up in hotels, about learning early that people treated you differently when they knew you had money, about Sarah, who'd seen him at his most powerless and still fought for him. I was afraid, he said quietly, that if you knew the whole truth, you'd love the idea of me instead of me. Silence, then softer. What truth? He told her. All of it. The trust, the properties, the hidden ownership, the years working under his own employment, the Kensington Grand. The irony of being thrown out of his own hotel. When he finished, the silence stretched so long he thought she'd hung up. Sarah? I'm here. Her voice was strange, distant. I need time to process this. I understand. Do you? Because I feel like I've been dating someone who doesn't exist. That's not... You lied, David. I never lied. You let me believe something that wasn't true. That's the same thing. He heard her breathe in, slow and shaky. I need space to think, Okay? I'm not saying goodbye, I'm just saying not right now. The line went dead. David sat in his apartment for 3 hours. Didn't move, didn't cry, just sat. Outside, Brooklyn moved through its evening. Sirens, laughter, the Q train rattling past. Life, continuing whether he was ready or not. A month passed. David threw himself into the audit. Traveled to all 7 properties. Sat in on training sessions. Read reports. Made changes. The Kensington Grand implemented new protocols. Catherine completed her retraining. Sent a formal apology to Sarah through the GM. Sarah didn't respond. David didn't reach out. He'd said everything he could. The rest was up to her. 6 weeks after their last conversation, David was in Portland inspecting the property he actually did manage day to day, a small boutique hotel near Powell's Books. He was in the basement checking the new boiler installation when his phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "I'm in Portland." His heart stopped. Asterisk where? Asterisk. Your hotel, the real one. David dropped what he was doing and ran. He found her in the lobby, smaller than the Kensington, warmer, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. She stood by the fireplace, hands in her coat pockets, looking around like she was seeing him for the first time. "Hi," he said out of breath. "Hi. How did you—" "I did some digging, called in some favors, found the property records." She turned to face him. "Took a while. You're very well hidden." "I know." "Is that what you wanted? To stay hidden?" David stepped closer. "At first, maybe, but not anymore." "Then why didn't you just tell me?" "Because I spent my whole life watching people change when they find out. They get careful, performative, or they get greedy. They start seeing what I can give them instead of who I am." He met her eyes. "And you were the first person in years who just saw me." Sarah was quiet. Then she looked around the lobby again. "This place is beautiful. It's small. It feels honest." She walked to the window and looked out at the rainy Portland street. "The Kensington is impressive, but this feels like you." "It is me." She turned back. "I'm still angry. I know. And I don't know if I can trust you." "I know. But I miss you." Her voice broke on the last word. "And I hate that I miss you, because you lied to me and I should be done." David crossed the space between them, stopped just close enough to feel the pull, but not close enough to touch. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not for having money, not for protecting myself, but for not trusting you with the truth sooner. You deserved better than that." Sarah looked at him for a long time. Then she reached out and took his hand. "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "Everything. The real you, not the hidden one, not the careful one. The one who gets kicked out of his own hotel and chooses restraint over revenge." She squeezed his fingers. "Show me who you are when no one's watching." So he did. They spent 3 days in Portland. He took her to the places he loved. The food carts on Hawthorne, the Japanese garden, a dive bar where he knew the owner. He showed her the apartment he kept above the hotel, small and cluttered with books. He introduced her to his staff, who greeted him with easy affection, no deference. And slowly, piece by piece, he stopped hiding. On the last day, they went back to the hotel lobby, sat in the 2 chairs by the fireplace, mismatched, comfortable, worn in by years of use. "These chairs," Sarah said, running her hand over the arm, "they're not fancy." "No? But they're real?" "Yes." She looked at him. "I think I get it now. Why you stayed quiet at the Kensington? It wasn't weakness. It was knowing the power isn't about making people bow, it's about choosing when to use it. David felt something loosen in his chest. I don't need you to be perfect, Sarah continued. I just need you to be honest. Can you do that? Yes. Even when it's hard. Especially then. She smiled. A real smile. The first one he'd seen in weeks. They sat there as the afternoon light faded, the fire crackling, Portland rain drumming against the windows. 2 people, 2 chairs, no masks. Just truth, finally, sitting quiet between them. If this story reminded you that real power isn't about being recognized, it's about knowing who you are when no one's watching, subscribe if you'd like, not because you have to, but because some truths are worth holding on to.